Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to part 21 for our Godot Action RPG series. This is going to be the final video. Holy cow, we've come a long way. In this video, we're going to be adding a wander state to our enemy AI. We're going to finish up these bats and make it so that when we don't engage with them, they should wander around a little bit. And then if we do engage with them and then run away, they'll try to return back to their original position and wander around that original position. So let's open up our bat scene right here. And we're going to create a new node 2D. And this is going to be called our wander controller. And we'll actually make this its own scene. So do save branch as scene. We can save it under enemies. And it needs to be a node 2D because it's going to have a position. It's going to use its own position to and kind of remember that as the base position for the wandering. We're going to store the start position of this enemy inside of our wander controller. So we can create a new script. We'll attach a script to it right here. And let's come into this scene actually. And it's also going to have a timer on it. And this timer is going to have a timeout that will connect to our, wait, did we not? We didn't create our script yet, so we'll make sure and do that. Oh, it did create it, so we're just attaching it. Cool. So we can get rid of that there, save, and we'll connect this timeout from our timer to our wander controller here. And our timer, we'll want to set its properties in the inspector. So we want our timer to be a one-shot, and we also want it to auto start, and we'll leave wait time at 1 second here. Let's save. We'll come into here. Now we need our start position, right? So onReady var start position equals global position. Now we need to use onReady var here because we want to get the position of this wander controller once it's already been instanced inside of the room and is attached to the enemy. That way we're basically getting the start position of our enemy with this line. onReady var, we need a target position. This is going to be the position that we move towards, that our enemy wanders towards. So we'll have a start position, and that will never change. The start position will always be the same. It'll be, well, inside the game, right? The enemy will have a place that it starts, and then we'll just remember that forever, and this will never change. But our target position will change, but it will change relative to the start position. That way our enemy never wanders too far away from where it originally started. So we'll set this equal to global position as well. Once we have that, we need to create a new function here called update target position. And this will just use our start position to create a new target position. So we'll say var target vector equals vector2. And we want to create this vector. We want to do it within a certain range, right? So we'll do rand range -32 and 32 for the x. And then rand range -32 and 32 for the y. Now this right here is a magic number. We might actually want to set this as an onReady variable here. So we could say on, or we could say export, an export variable I mean, wander range, and well, let's see, this will be an int var wander range, and we'll set this equal to 32 by default, and then we can replace these magic numbers here, and we're coming a little bit off the screen here. but we can replace those magic numbers. You still want negative wander range and wander range like this, but we can replace those, and that way we don't have a magic number. And you could set each individual enemy if you wanted to. You could update their wander range to give them a different range in which they could wander. And once we have that done, we need to actually, because this just creates a target vector variable, we need to actually update the target position. So we'll say target position equals start position plus target vector. And you can see here where our target position is always going to be relative to the start position. That way they never wander too far away from it. We keep them within a certain range of that start position, the wander range that we have here. And inside of our timer here, we can just do update target position. So our wander controller is constantly creating a new target position every time this timer goes off. So every second, it's going to pick a new target position to wander to. However, our bat enemy isn't always going to be using that, depending on the state that it's in. And so when it's in the idle state, it's not going to be using it. When it's in the wander state, it will use it, but we could potentially switch back to the idle state and wait for a bit there as well. And so we're going to have a function here. We have our seek player inside of the bat. We're going to create a new function here called pick new state. And it's going to take a list of states. So state list like this, which will be an array. And in order to get we want to pick actually we'll call this pick random state. And it'll pick a random state from this list that we're going to pass it. So we can say state list.shuffle. That will shuffle the list. And then we can do return state list.pop front. So what that'll do is it'll take the list of states that we've passed it. It will shuffle that list, and then it'll grab the very first one. So basically picking a random one from that list. And that's the easiest way to do that, is like that. So then inside of our wander state, we can easily, and we'll do this inside of the idle state as well, we can easily switch between these two. And we'll use the wander controller to do that. So our wander controller has this timer attached to it, right? And we want to use this timer. So we can actually detect to see if the timer's time left is equal to 0. So inside of here, we'll say function get time left. And this will just return, and we can get access to our timer up here. onReady var timer equals timer, and we'll just say return timer dot time left, like this. We can get access to our time left, and remember, call up signal, or signal up call down. So inside of our idle here, or inside of our enemy, we first need to get access to our new wander controller. So onReady var wander controller equals wander controller, like this. Have a typo there. Okay. And then inside of idle, we can say if wander controller dot get time left equals 0. So if it's set to get time left equals 0, then we want to do state equals choose. Oh, let's see. What do we call that function? Pick. Okay, pick. Did we call it pick? Why isn't it remembering this? Pick random state. Here we go. Pick random state, and we need to pass it some states that we want it to pick from. So we can do idle and wander. So if the time left is equal to 0, we will pick an idle and a wander here. And then we want to set the timer on our wander controller as well. So we'll just make a quick little function here, set timer. Well, let's call it start wander timer. Yeah, that should be good enough. And we can pass in an amount, a duration, we'll call it. And we can just say timer.start duration, right? So now we've got a set wander timer here. Clear this, come back into our bat. And we can do that here. So when the time left on the timer is equal to 0, then we can reset it. So wander controller.set wander timer, and we'll do, for our value here, we'll do rand range 1 to 3. So we'll pick between 1 and 3 seconds for our new timer. So now our idle state should switch between idle and the wander state, but we need to do the same thing for our wander state. So our wander state will have seek player as well, because while we're in the wander, we want to be looking for our player. And then we'll have this exact same thing right here, actually. We could maybe put this in a function. What would we call this? We would call this check for new state or something. I have to come up with some kind of name. Oh, we made a mistake here, which is that our pick random state here, we've passed in 2 arguments. It actually takes 1 argument, but that 1 argument is an array. So we can just put brackets around these 2 things right here. That will turn this into 1 argument, which is an array of states. And that's what we wanted in the first place. So there we go. Then we can say we want to move towards the player. And we have that in this code right here. And this is actually an area that could be improved, because this direction, how we're getting the direction here, could be a lot easier. We can just use the direction to function right here. So we're trying to get from ourselves to the player. And in order to do that, we can just say global position dot direction to player dot global position. There we go. This is a much better way of moving towards the player. Now we're going to be doing this same thing right here, only instead of moving towards the player, we're going to move towards our wander controller target position. So right here, instead of doing player.global position, we'll do wander controller.target position, like this. Now, when we're in the wander state, we should move towards our target position. And that should work. And we can actually test this to see how things are going with the code that we've written so far. Let's see how things are going with our bats. Okay, so we're getting an error message here. We have set wander time in base node 2D right here. And the issue that we're getting is that it's saying set wander timer is not an actual function. So you can see right here, invalid call, non-existent function, set wander timer. So let's come into our wander control here. I did it as start wander timer. So that's the issue. Come back into here, update both of these so they use start wander timer. Now let's try again. There we go. The bats all start moving and they move towards a target position. The problem is when they reach that target position, they continue to try and move towards it, and they kind of like wobble a bit back and forth. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that when they get close enough to that target position that they stop moving towards it. And so the way to do that is we can check the distance to the target position, and that's going to be a little bit relative to their movement speed. Like we might want to use their max movement speed to determine whether or not they've gotten close enough to that target position. So we can say, does vector 2, let's look at vector 2 here. There's been a lot of times where I've done the vector math, but there's already just a function in there that makes it easy for us. So let's check and see if there is one. We have distance 2. So yeah, distance 2 is what we're going to need here. And so we can just say, right here, we'll say if global position dot distance 2, and then we'll do wander controller dot target position. If our distance to the wander controller is less than or equal to our max speed times acceleration times, no, just our max speed. I think just our max speed here. If it's less than or equal to our max speed, then we would do global. Let's see. Then I think we just, we want to choose another state again. So state equals pick random state. We'll do this right here. Because we've reached the end of it, we could either pause or pick a new wander position. And we want to start our timer over again. So start our timer over again as well, like this. Let's see if this works. Run the game. Okay, they're not moving, so that's not good. Don't seem to be moving. So what did we do here? Wander controller dot target position. If global position dot distance 2, a max speed is going to be, here's the problem, I think. Max speed is going to be way too high, but I want it to be, I think our problem is that max speed is too high. Like, let's just for testing, let's set this to 4 right here and see if this works. And you can see that it does work properly. They'll wander around to different points. So what I was worried about is I'm worried, the reason I wanted to use max speed is that I was worried that our max, that if we set our speed to enough, that this would no longer work, right? If you set an enemy's speed high enough, then this code is no longer going to work because it's set up with an acceleration and a friction. So that's why I wanted to use max speed. But I think the problem here is that max speed, eventually when it gets passed into the movement, right here, move and slide, it's getting delta applied to it. And so that's part of what's going on with that. So we might just export this variable. That's an okay solution. I don't really like that solution, but I think it's an okay one. So export var target, what would we call that? Target range. Let's see, wander target range. I don't even know what I would call that. I'm not sure what it is. It's basically like a, because we can't do equals, I don't think. We can't do like equals 0 because it's never going to equal 0. Or very rarely equals 0. Let's try it. Let's try it though. I want to make sure that I'm wrong or that I'm right. Yeah, you can see that it doesn't actually work if you just do equals 0. Like you have to have some sort of a because they're never going to be exactly on that position. So we're trying to detect, are they close enough to that position for us to count it as them being there, right? And so that's the idea behind the wander target range. It's kind of like a buffer, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can come up with a better name. For now, I'm just going to leave it as this. And if we run the game, you can see the bats will now properly wander. Oh, no. See, look, that's not enough either. Oh, it's because I did equals. Should be less than or equal to. That way, if they're less than, if the distance is lower. And now you can see they'll move to those positions and then wait. But we need to make sure our bat is facing the proper direction. When the bat is moving towards the player, oh, we can use the same code actually. Yeah, if we're in the wander, we can just use the same code here. Just paste that right there. And now they will turn and face the direction that they're moving in while they're in the wander state, like this. And we can also, on their ready function, so we can say, let's see, where's our state? Yeah, so up here at the top, we can create a new function, ready. We'll just do the ready function. We can say state equals, and we'll pick a random state, like this. And we don't want them to chase, but we can pick between idle and wander. And that way, when the game starts, well, theoretically, they would sometimes pick wander. So inside of Godot, if the game is set up to have the same random seed every time you run the game, which means every time we run the game, it's going to actually pick the same stuff that it picked in the last one. Like you can see, this bat always comes to here. Those two always don't move. Like if we run the game again, it'll do that same thing. This bat comes to here. These two don't move. Then this one goes here. Like every time we run the game, we're going to get the exact same result. Now, why is that? It's because when games are picking random numbers, they use what's called a seed. And if you give them the same seed, then the random, quote, numbers that they pick will always be the same. And that's what's happening here. Obviously, if you change your code, like if you were to make some sort of a change, then that would change the seed as well. But the reason they're set up that way is for testing purposes. It's helpful to be able to test your game, but we don't want it to do that every time. So how can we fix that? Well, one solution is the solution actually is to call the randomize function. And you can do that anywhere. You could make a new world script potentially. I'm just going to put it inside of our player for now. But we'll call this randomize function. And what that will do is it'll make sure that every time we run the game, we get a different result than the last time we ran it. Like this. Okay? Now, the reason that our bats aren't actually moving at the very start is because our wander controller, if we come into our wander controller again, you can see that our target position is the start position at the very beginning. It's global, it's the same. And so we might want to actually, instead of doing equals global position like this, we might want to, actually, you can just leave that the same, but then come in and we'll create our ready function. And we can call update target position right in the ready function. That way some of the bats will stay idle, but some will move immediately when they get started. And that's what we want here. Dang, those bats just murder you. And you can see that they're different every time now. If we get this bat to chase us and then run away, it'll actually move back to where it will attempt to move back to its original position. And they don't have pathfinding, obviously. We're not getting that complicated with how they work. There's no pathfinding. But they will attempt to move back to their original position after chasing you around. So there we go. There's a little bit of cleanup work that we can do, and I think it would be good to do that here. So you can see we're reusing some code. And right here, whenever we're trying to move towards something, we're also whenever we try and move towards something, we're updating the player's, the bat sprite right here. So I think this would be a good, whenever you have duplicate code like this where only one thing changes, like you can see the only thing that's changing here is this, the wander controller target position or the player position. Everything else is the same. You can make a function for that. So we'll make a function called accelerate towards point. And we can just pass in some sort of position. And then we can copy this code right here and paste it inside of our function. But instead of moving towards our wander target position here, we'll just use point. Now for this function, we need delta as well, so we'll have to pass in delta. But we can just have our point and then our delta, like that. And we're still having an issue. Where's our issue here? Velocity, move towards unexpected indent. Oops, I've indented it too many times. There we go. Now that we have that, we can replace this right here and this right here. We'll keep this end piece because that's the position we want to move towards. So we can say accelerate towards point. And the point that we're accelerating to is the player's position, like that. And then we need to pass in delta, like that. And then we can do the same thing up here. So we can get rid of this bit. And we can get rid of this, but keep the point that we're moving towards, call accelerate towards point. And we can pass in delta right here. And this bit right here is also repeated, right? We repeat this in how many places? Let's see. 3 places. So that would be a good one to copy as well. And I don't know what to call that. What would we call that? What function should we call that? It picks a new state and it starts a wander timer. So we could call it update wander or something. I don't know. That seems way too generic. But whatever. It's easy to rename later. Sometimes picking names is just about doing it, and then you can always change it later. There we go. Update wander. And paste that here. Update wander. Update wander. And our code is cleaner now. Get rid of some of these so it's more clear. This is our idle state. This is our wander state. This is our chase state. And there we go. Dang, none of our bats moved. Did we mess something up or was it just unlucky? It was just unlucky. They're moving now. That can happen. Ah. There we go. Oh my gosh, you know what? You guys are going to be so happy about this, actually. I forgot about one thing that I was going to do in the video. So this isn't the last video. This isn't the last one. I've got one more. I just remembered there's one more thing that I wanted to do. So psych, I guess. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video though, and you learned something from it. If you did, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. This video was sponsored by my 1-Bit Godot Kickstarter backers. There'll be a link in this video if you want to learn more about that. And I will talk to you all later.